Welcome to GameSpot's coverage of E3 2018. I am joined by a couple friends from Toys for Bob who brought a little creature who could spit fire. I'm joined by Paul Yan and Peter Kovic.
Hi.
How you guys doing today?
Great. We're really excited to show Spyro the Reignited Trilogy today.
All right, and we got some gameplay too that we're going to be showing right here. I'm going to be kind of asking a few questions about Spyro Reignited Trilogy while we see, what's this level called? Toasty?
This is called Toasty from the first game, Spyro the Dragon, off of the first homeworld, the Artisan homeworld.
All right, shall we get into it?
Yeah.
Let's go.
So Peter's going to drive, and we'll talk. So Toasty was really important for us because this was one of the first levels that we actually started on to help calibrate what it means to embellish and bring Spyro up to high definition. The Crash Insane trilogy actually set a really high bar for us, and we wanted to follow in that footsteps and bring more detail and lushness. So the first thing that you might notice is the grass is now filled out. It's not a flat plane. It's actually interactive, and you can roll around in it, move the flowers around. You can actually burn them now with your flame breath.
Oh, I see that, yeah.
We added a ton of detail in the mason work, and even in the backgrounds with the castle, you can see the flags rolling around and the individual tilings.
So I imagine that you used the original game as a template, of course, and then built off that for all of the new assets and all the visual upgrades. So did you do anything different in terms of level design, how things are laid out?
Well, that's actually oh, geez, I bit it. That's a great question because we didn't have the source assets to build from.
Oh, okay,
and so
I didn't know that.
We ended up with our engineering team build a tool that we in-house call Spira Scope, and effectively it helps us build out what the exact heights are of different environment areas. So we see these steps here. It's the accurate representation from the original game of what they are like. This also works with gem placements, treasures, enemies. So this was a great tool for us to be able to see where everything belonged and be accurate.
Okay.
So Spyro Scope was actually running the original game in emulation, and we were able to extract really hard coordinates of the layout, exactly what the elevations were, the placements of the gems and the treasures. We analyzed the behaviors of the enemies and their timing, their pathing. We even did frame analysis on Spyro's locomotion, so we know exactly how high he needs to be at frame 3, at what speed, and all that.
Okay.
Because all those details really matter, and hopefully all those things will just wash away. And if you are familiar with the game and you pick up that controller, all of that muscle memory will just rush back in, and you'll feel at home with this.
Okay, cool. And is there, gameplay-wise, is there any quality of life improvements that you would want to point to from the original games? I know it's been about 20 years since we saw Spyro on the PS1, so is there any gameplay changes you can point to?
Sure. The first one is, it's kind of hard to remember this, but when Spyro first came out on PS1, the controllers didn't have analog sticks. So you were playing with D-pad, and actually, us as an industry was trying to figure out 3D and navigating perspective there. And so the original controls had camera move on the shoulder buttons. And so the first thing that we wanted to do is make sure that camera felt good on the right analog stick. And then the second one was that the game was in 4:3, so with a wider aspect ratio, you've got a greater viewing angle. So how does that all work with the classic control scheme? That was something we spent a tremendous amount of time on.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at a lot of the graphical improvements here. It's coming off of what we saw with Crash Insane Trilogy. This seems to be in line with like the recreation of these old character platformers.
Oh,
and
totally.
I kind of wanted to ask about, like, is there like a thirst for these old school character action games?
Yeah, I think that there is. I know that I personally love them, and so getting the chance to play again with Spyro has been great fun. And like we were just touring around in there outside of the art gallery, it's a chance to make these old environments feel alive in a way that they weren't ever before. Getting a chance to see that Nevin the dragon in this realm was a painter, and like other artisans or sculptors or baristas, or the beast makers are really tribal in their feel. Like there's a number of things that we were able to do that just give a little bit more poignancy and life to what these characters and these worlds are like, and that makes this kind of platforming game come back to life.
All right, yeah, I feel you on that.
The fans really showed up, and they've been screaming for this game to be made, and it's so exciting to actually finally be able to deliver it. And 20th anniversary, it's a great time to do that. I know for us at Toys for Bob, we're really attracted to games that don't take themselves so seriously, and this is from the golden age of platforming with color and games that are super colorful, and they can be silly and scary and all of these different things, and I think it's time for more games like this.
Ooh, speaking of time for more games like this, so we had Crash Insane Trilogy, and now we're getting Spyro Reignited Trilogy. what's next on board for y'all. I know we're just showing Spyro here today, but has that kind of like turned the wheels in your head and thinking ahead of like what other character action games you want?
You know, today we're just talking about Spyro Reignited Trilogy, but I think the future has there's a lot of possibilities out there.
Okay.
And if appetite is out there, these are kind of games that I like to play, and I think there's a lot of people out there that would agree.
Okay. Oh man, my bad.
No, it's all good.
All right. I know that the voice actor for Spyro from 2 and 3 came back to do Spyro's lines, like redo them completely. And also, if I recall correctly, he wasn't voicing Spyro in the first game.
Yes.
But here we do have the recreation of the first game. So did you have him come back for voicing in the first game?
All three of those. And Tom Kenny was clearly a fan favorite. I think he's like the true voice of Spyro. So it was such a great thing that we're super excited to bring him back, to have him be Spyro once again.
Okay. And that also leads into the composer for the original soundtrack.
Yes.
I know that the voice lines were redone, so I imagine that the music would also have to be redone. So did you bring back the original composer to recreate those tunes?
So all of Stuart Copeland's original music has been remastered in the same type of detail, attention to detail that we did with the rest of the game. There's a little tiny things that we did to add some dynamic quality to the music as well. So first of all, we had to transcribe all of it note for note and then hunt down all of the individual and obscure instruments that were used. And then on top of that, we're adding some contextual things, like when Spyro dashes, you can hear a little, this is a subtle note. We add a little bit of percussion just so that sonically you get some feedback of speed. Or if you're in an interior space, it might feel a little bit more echoey. Very subtle things that just gives it a little bit more dynamic of a quality.
Cool. All right. Yeah, this is looking real nice. And to see these old school games from like the PS1 era, reimagined on like the PS4 and all of the new consoles, it evokes like those feelings you had when you were a kid. So yeah, and I imagine a lot of people appreciate that. So and that's also something that means a lot to y'all, I imagine.
Yes, that's such an important part about this. This is not just about making a game look prettier. This was a really important part of people's lives, and so the way that I like to think about this effort is that this is a magical time machine for people, and hopefully if we get it right, you'll pick up the controller and be transported to that precious time.
Cool. Yeah. I wanted to touch on, like, I just want to get at your perspective in terms of, like, we remember these games and it's almost tapping into nostalgia big time. So for those who didn't play those games back in the day, this is also a way for them to enjoy them in a new light. But I also want to ask about, are there any concerns in terms of like level design feeling antiquated, or is it just like staying true to the way the levels are designed? Is like there's no deviating from that big time? Like, what are your thoughts on like someone who might be like, I don't know if I want to go back to Spyro or Crash, because games have evolved since then? Like, is this specifically for those who just want to go on that nostalgia trip?
This is there's actually a timeless quality, I think. Like, this is my 2 cents here, but there's something about Spyro that just is this exciting adventure of a little kid dragon, and just the ability to like find yourself an identity through him is just sort of really engaging. So that's a large part of what we leaned into and what really is invigorating for me about what these games are. So yes. Sorry, I'm flying here and trying to...
I think also some of these levels, the one that we're looking at right here, Treetops, is actually really difficult. And then, Sunny Flight. And we also brought Treetops, which is very, very difficult and challenging, and the game doesn't hold your hand. And that's okay. That's what games can be. That's what they were. And I think there's a hunger and appetite to kind of bring back a lot of those qualities of challenge.
Yeah, I was also going to ask about, like, we talked about graphics. They've been redone. Level design is tried and true to how Spyro was back in the day.
Nice work.
Are there any like quality of life improvements for players that are new to the series? Like, you're not adding like waypoints to like show you where you're supposed to go. It's still kind of like you have to find out where the adventure is or what the next objective is.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think Paul had mentioned it a little bit earlier about the camera controls moving to the right analog stick, which has been huge. I mean, that's the one way I was able to get through Sunny Flight right there. It's just that modern feel and language of the controller is a huge quality of life update. Then beyond that, having the save points not be opt-in, like you'll automatically save when you go to a ferry. So, yeah.
And there's other things that we've done now, thinking about it as a trilogy, to make the experience cohesive. So the UI now is actually can be consistent across the different games. We've actually added a way to fast travel to the levels, so that you don't have to actually go into the home worlds and then pop back out. So tiny things like that, they add up and are going to hopefully make the experience better. All
right, cool. I know we only saw the Spyro 1 here today, so one package is going to give you all 3 games, if I recall correctly?
Yes.
All right, cool.
It's over 100 levels, over 400 characters. It's been a daunting task, but also a really exciting one for us as well.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I know we were talking about this earlier, and I just want to bring up Spyro Year of the Dragon, 3rd game. That skateboarding minigame was dope. So are we gonna see that revamped in any way?
We're excited for you to get a chance to check it out.
All right. I'll take what I can get, man. Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to say about Spyro Reignited Trilogy before we leave today?
Well, the Reignited Trilogy is going to be coming out September 21st, and it's going to be on PS4 and Xbox One.
For $39.99.
$39.99.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Michael.
All
right. That was Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Thank you, Paul. And Peter. Damn, I almost forgot your name. We got Paul and Peter here from Toys for Bob showing us Spyro Reignited Trilogy here at E3 2018.
Thanks for watching.